Hi guys, thank you so much for purchasing the rest kit. I'm going to try a new feature this month when it comes to the kit. There's a lot of things that I would like to show you guys, but because of, you know, um, time that's involved in doing things and the waiting time in between, it's almost impossible to show some things, on a live. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to consolidate some information for this kit in a video for you so that you have somewhere to come back to as a point of reference if you have any questions about how to do, an aspect of this actual resting. And I think too, it's a nice little feature for those that purchased it. They have one place to go to instead of having to look through the stream and try and figure out, where did she do that? So I'm going to try it with this month, and then, you guys give me the feedback, if you like this feature. And if you do, then I will, continue to do that with the other kits. And also it will give me, I think, a little more freedom to do a few things that I've been thinking about, but it's too hard to do in a one sitting in a live. I would have to like edit the videos because of all the time in between doing certain things within the project. But anyway, enough of all that. I just wanted to explain to you why you're getting a video, a link to a video. Alrighty. Okay, um, so you either bought the kit or you bought the tins. And if you're into the resting, um, I will explain to you what to do if you want more rust on the tins that you have, or if you have other tins around the house that you think, hey, I think I might want to rest those. And this is basically what I do is I get half vinegar and half water. I have some in a sprayer, and right now I'm going to make a solution. I keep my old ice cream little tubs because they don't cost you anything, and if you're messing up, who cares, right? So this right now is approximately half water, and now I'm going to be adding in just regular distilled white vinegar. Sometimes I get asked, well, what about apple vinegar? The answer is I don't know. I've never tried it. I don't know if the balance on it is different. I'm not really sure. All I know is this is what I use and it works. But what I tell everybody is please experiment. The whole fun of all this isn't necessarily to do exactly what I do, because when I was learning, I did not end up doing exactly, the way I found information. I like to experiment. And and you may find out, oh well, that person experimented enough already. Ooh, I can't open that. Oh, I've never opened it. No wonder. That person already experimented and they've come to maybe the same conclusions that you come to. But for me personally, I think the fun part is experimenting. And that's why when it comes like to my eco printing, I enjoy it so much because it's a constant um, learning factor. And if you enjoy doing that kind of stuff, well, more power to you. If you don't, well, maybe these kind of things just aren't for you. And that's okay too. All right. So let's pretend you have some pieces of tin that aren't crusty like this yet. So what I do is I get this and I spray it all down front and back and I put it outside. I'm a patient rester. I let the elements take its course. So I would go and take this outside, spray it all up, and go put it outside. After it's dry, I'd spray it up again and let it sit outside. And then leave it out there for several days, and it will start getting very, very rusty. Now remember, what helps rust all of this is the fact that the air is oxidizing it. So, spray it, put it out there, let the air do its things to it, sit it out. If it's not rusty enough, spray it again. And if you're patient, you're just going to leave it outside, for like a week or 2 weeks. It will, with the dew overnight, it'll get moist, and then the air will hit it and it'll oxidize even more. That's one natural way to do it. The other way is if you want to get this mixture and put in there some hydrogen peroxide, and I usually put equal parts of everything, and then I will spray it, or if I have it on a container like this, I'll dip it in, and then I just pile them on top of each other and put it in a plastic bag and put a little bit more of whatever your mixture, your concoction is, and then sit it outside in the bag, sealed up, and it heats up. Because another way you can do it is you can bind these all up within some paper or some other kind of um, or cloth, and then you can steam it. Well, I personally, even though with my plants, I cook all kinds of stuff. I'm just not crazy about inhaling um, boiling rust. I do have my limits. So I don't boil or steam mine like some people do. And maybe if you have something outside to do that, you might choose to do that. But because all of my cooking is done here in my studio indoors, um, I just don't want to do that. So I wrap mine up and put it in plastic, throw it outside, hopefully, during a nice sunny day. And that's why I figured we could start, doing the rest, because most of the country it's starting to warm up. And then I just throw it outside and watch it, sweat in there and get all nice and gooky. And, that's what I do to get these rusty. So you can let it do au naturel, or you can speed it up. Okay, so let's say you've done either one of those, or you're choosing just to use whatever rest was on the tin as you received it. So let's say this is the one you get in the mail, and we will proceed as if you've chosen not to do anything to it. All right, so now you have this fabric, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut these into 4 pieces, tear it, so that I can lay it on here. And where's my scissors? So, and I'm just going to, guesstimate it. Uh-oh, that didn't tear straight. Well, maybe you should cut it. Don't make the mistake I did. It's all cool. It's still all going to be rust. It's still all going to be rusty. And then I'm going to put these in here, in that half and half mixture. Now these, the cloth that I sent you, it's already been pre-washed. I try to get all the sizing out of it, because that sizing will be like a resist. You know how it starts to bubble on top of the fabric when you just put water on it? That's because of all the sizing in it. So those pieces I sent to you, the sizing is all gone. But if you're going to use some other fabrics that you have, some cottons, maybe you have some linens you want to use, make sure you've washed them. And make sure that you double rinse it so that you don't have the residue of the soap, because that also, puts like a resistance on there, because it's supposed to be repelling also dirt in the future, well, it's going to be resisting the rust. So, you know, even if you're just rinsing it by hand, make sure you do it 2 times at least to get all those suds. Make sure there's no suds coming out when you're rinsing. And that will help for your fabric to soak in all of the rust. Okay, let me finish doing these. And you don't have to cut yours up. If you want your design in the center of the block, like the one that I was doing that slow stitching on, then you would just lay your tin in the center, and you wouldn't have to cut this. Okay, so we got that all set. Now, oh, and by the way, if you think your hands are going to be sensitive to that, or if you have little small cuts or dry skin, that vinegar it's stingy. So keep all that in mind. Like I have some nicks from doing some gardening, and it's really stinging me because of that vinegar. Anyway, forgot about that. Owie. Okay, so now you got that soaking in there. And I'm going to get because I don't want to make too much of a mess. If I was outside, I'd get these and just dunk them inside of this water. But I think I'll make way too much of a mess if I do that. So if you're working outside, now you would just get these and dunk them in your half and half solution. If your workspace needs you to be a little tidier, well then this would be the good time. Then you would use your little spray bottle and get that kind of soaked up. So it's nice and wet, because that vinegar is going to releases the rust. In addition to, if it hits the air, it causes rust. It's like a double whammy. So rinse this out. Don't get it completely rinsed out, but don't have it like dripping. But keep it wet, because all of this is going to help release all of this rust. Okay, so now you get your next one. Spray it all down nice and good. And if your patterns are all going to be different, but I'm looking to see if I have the same pattern. These just happen to be from the same. So if I put it on top of, exactly on top of each other, that's going to help push it down and get that design. And then get your next one, halfway squeeze that out, lay that one down there, squirt the back for the next one, and just, you know, if you just got your 2, well then you're all set. You're ready to go. If you got more than 2, you just pile it up. I call it my rest lasagna. And you just keep going. I need a different type of spray bottle. See, I'm used to outside just dunking this all over the place. Okay, that's not squirting so well, so I'm just going to make a big mess here. Okay, so you get the idea. You're just going to repeat this. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this all up, and then I'll show you what we're going to do next. All right? All right, so I have finished my Rusty lasagna. Now get some paper, whatever kind of paper you have. You can use, copy paper, if you have brown wrapping paper, if you have, a paper bag, whatever you have. I have some of this, what do you call it? Can't think what you call it. Anyway, drafting paper with some house plants. There you go. And whoa, and watch all the stuff that's all wet, and I'm just wrapping on here just so that, not for any particular reason, except it's easier to grab and you have a less chance of cutting yourself. So then I'm going to put it in this. If you have a Ziploc bag, if you have, any kind of plastic bag left over, doesn't matter. Even if it doesn't zip up, it doesn't matter, because we're going to fold it over. And then what I do, I'm not putting it in here because it's really dirty. I have a big old black trash bag outside that I put all these into. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to go put this in a black trash bag. And the only reason I say black is because, it really concentrates the heat. It heats it up a little bit more. But you can use any kind of a bag. You can actually just put this outside just the way it is. But I just have my old junky bag that I'm going to go put it in. And then I'm going to leave it there for at least a couple of hours in the direct sun, and then I'll go and check it, see how it's, how it's cooking out there, and decide if that's all the rust I want on it, or if I want more. You can leave it as long as you want. You can leave it overnight. You can leave it for days. But I'm going to check on it in a couple hours just to see how it's cooking. Because look, you can already see that some of the rust has gone through the paper. So you see that already? All right, so bundle it up in something plastic and then get it outside, and I'll be back when I'm ready to show you what the cooking has done. All right, so that is outside cooking right now, and I wanted to show you something that I also do when the rusting is already completed. Now, when you go back out there, I'll show it to you once it's done. But once you go out there, there's going to be a lot of moisture that's in there. And so what I end up doing is I get another container like that ice cream container, and I put some water in it, and then the fabric that comes out, I dunk it in there and kind of rinse it a couple of times in that. And then I'll move it from there into another container, a clean container, so I can get a little bit more of the impurities out of there. And then eventually, once I've done that several times, then I will wash it with some kind of a mild detergent to get all of the rust feeling of it and out of the fabric, and then you just have the print left. Okay, so on those various stages of water, I used to just throw it out in my plants that need iron, and that was that. But then I decided, wait a minute, there's a lot of that iron that's left there, a lot of the rust. What else could I do with that? So as I started looking at my container that I had done like maybe the first and the second rinse in, you're going to notice that it's going to be an orangey color. It looks like rust, right? So then I just let it sit there, and then the sediment started filling up on that big container. And I thought, wait a minute, maybe there's something I can do with that. So I saved some in some jars, and then I came back later and go, what am I going to do with that? Well, some of this water up here, I would get it by the spoonful and I'd throw it in my eco printing, because sometimes you can add the rusty bits, as most of you know, or you could add just rust water and it will still have the same effect when you're doing your eco prints. So I was saving everything. And then I would save it in the jar, and then I would see that this was down here on the bottom. So then one day I got this idea, and I had this colander. Is that what you call it? Yeah, I think so. Oop, this is going to be way too close, huh, guys? Anyway, oh well. See, that's the problem when you don't have a camera that can zoom way out. So I have that, and maybe if I had a shorter jar, but I need a jar with a big mouth like that. Anyway, you're just going to get close up and personal. That's all. So then what I did is I got all this yumminess. Let's see how much of a mess I end up making here. I'm trying to let you guys see what I'm doing. I'll probably make a big one. And then I got a coffee filter. And then I would come back and put a little bit of water in there to get the rest of that out. But anyway, I would let this drip down. Let all the water go through. And again, save, if you're going to do other kind of printing, save all of this liquid. None of it's going to go to waste. And get a lot of that off. And then with the jar and everything, because all the water is not going to, you know, go through right away. If you had fabric, you know, you could grab the fabric together and squeeze it, but I didn't have any that I wanted to use. But you could use like cheesecloth or whatever. So anyway, so then you would squeeze it a little bit or set this whole thing outside in the sun, and then you're going to end up with a little bit of powder down on the bottom. And now you can create your own rust paste and do whatever you want to do with that rust. It is super cool to work with. That will be for another day, another time, you know, another caboodle maybe, who knows, or just a class that I'll put together. But I'm giving you heads up that when you start working with your crust, when you start working with your rust, don't throw away all those little crusty bits and stuff, because you can find something to do with everything. At least I do. So put this out in the sun, let the water evaporate, and you're going to end up with this little fine powder, and just let your imagination go what you want to do with it. All right. So I'm going to go put this outside, and I'll be back when the resting is done to show you how it worked out. Okay, so that bundle that we made, I was outside for about 2 hours, and it's about 75 degrees, but the sun is out. So let's see what we have. That way you can kind of guesstimate how long you want to leave yours. This may or may not have a lot of print already, but we will find out together. Well, that's already looking pretty yummy. Now, when I do stuff, I recycle pretty much every step along the way. Now, I don't have the water in here right now because it's going to overflow and it's going to go all over my desk. But when I'm doing this, I will have a bucket with some water in it already. And then as I remove the fabric, I put it and just leave it in there. And then after I've exposed all of the prints, then I'll go through that cycle of rinsing it and then putting in a cleaner one and rinsing it, and you know, until the water is as clear as you want it to be. And then because I do my eco printing also, I save that water because it's got, you know, all the rest in it, and then I use that water when I do my printing. So every step along the way, I don't throw anything away. I pretty much reuse it. But if, you know, if you're not doing things like that, well, You may not have any reason to save all this stuff. But just in case you get adventurous, I'm just letting you know ahead of time that I do save pretty much everything. Okay, this is kind of a messy situation here. And I do have my gloves because there's going to be like rust everywhere. And I have a few little cuts from doing gardening, so I don't want the vinegar and everything else to mess with my cuts. Now we're going to test it. Well, I'll probably go ahead and open up the whole thing, but you know, it may not have printed as much as you want it to, and you may want to put it back in. So this is kind of like checking it out. See, it's got rust everywhere, but do we have a print? Well, it looks like it is. Let's see here. It's a faint print. I mean, there's rust everywhere, obviously, but the actual print on this particular one is kind of faint. So you may want to stick it back in. Again, this is only 2 hours. I don't think it was hot enough. The heat didn't build up enough. I would put this back out. But let's go ahead and look at it just for the sake of you seeing it. I'm going to try and kind of sort of line it up. See, the further you get in general, you know, it'll start to heat up in the center. So you got a pretty cool print happening there. So that's nice. And then depending on your fabric, the tighter the weave, the more precise the print. So obviously this kind of fabric, the weave isn't, now see, that didn't do anything. Isn't that odd? And you're going to get that. So like for instance, you're only dealing with maybe, you know, 2 or 4 tins. So you may have your tin where it does that and you're going to get really disappointed. Don't. Just spray a little bit more vinegar on there and put it right back on there and wrap it up and stick it back out. Don't get discouraged because it will happen. You can see right here how some of them are working more than the other, and they're in the exact same circumstances with the exact same fabrics. So again, this is 2 hours. I usually leave it there all day long, to tell you the truth. But in case you are impatient like I used to be at the beginning, I was very impatient. This is what you're probably going to see if you only leave it out there for 2 hours. Now, if you're 2 hours, it's already, you know, 80, 90 degrees out there. Well, it will have cooked a lot, and you'll have a pretty cool print. And I can feel this. This is warm to the touch, and it's just been outside. And I can see that this one right here is kind of dry. I don't know if you can see that or not. So I would re-wet this one. And with, you know, anything that is, you know, natural, it's never going to act the same. And for some people, that's the frustrating part about doing things like this, and they give up. For me, that's the fun part, because I just never know what's going to happen. Okay, so definitely this needs to be out there longer. So those few that were a little dry, I'm going to spray a little bit of the 50/50 solution. And I'll probably just spray it on the tin because the fabrics are all still pretty moist. So I just want to reactivate the stuff on the tin. And see how this one, you can see where there's no moisture. So where there's no moisture or no contact, you're not going to be getting any rust. Kind of a no-brainer, right? Okay. So let's get these back in there. I have another batch out there that I put together off camera, the same fabrics. And so I'm not going to open that one up because it's probably at the same stage as this one. So, okay, so I'm going to squirt some of those tins that were on the dry side, wrap it back up, put it back here in the plastic, put it in the other plastic, and throw it out there in the sun for a couple of more hours. Okay? And then we'll come back and I'll show you what the process looks like. Alrighty, so what I did is I put them back out. It was a long sunny day and I left them out basically until the sunset. And so then I was kind of busy, so I didn't open them up. This is the next day. They've been in the house, you know, since the sunset, but I didn't take them out because I wanted to do it on camera with you guys. Woohoo, look at that. Okay, let's see. Let me get some space. I put some white paper down because, you know, if we have any spillage, then woohoo, have some really cool paper. And, oh, they're still really wet. Look at that. You can see how wet they are. Now, yesterday, well, you're seeing this all at one time, but I mentioned earlier that you could dunk all these, you know, in the water and clean them up by rinsing them out, you know, in a pail. I say that because most of you are going to be doing your projects indoors. And depending on the kind of pipes that you have, you don't want to be putting rusty things down your pipes in case you don't have PVC. If you have an older home and there's still, you know, the metal pipes. But because I have my little area outside, I have this cattle fence that my husband put up, and I hang lots of things on that. So the way that I do this, if you have a situation similar to mine, is I hang these on the cattle fence, and then I get my garden hose and put it, you know, on the most intense power that it has, and then I just squirt them. I hose them down until they run clear, and then once they're all clear, then if it's a nice day, I just leave them out to dry. So those are the options you have, because, you know, all of our circumstances are different. But wow, look at that piece of paper. I just love how the paper looks. Look at that. So after you've done this with fabric and you like how it looks, you can come back and do it again. And what I do is I put like maybe 4 to 5 layers of paper, because it's really just going to saturate all the way through. Everything is going to get a nice little print. And then just set those up and see, you know, and obviously, you know, you use these over and over and over. And then what I personally do is once I've done this, I just put it outside where the elements can hit it all the time, and it just starts creating more and more rust. But I know everybody's circumstances are different. Okay, so now this is all like really dark, obviously, but you can still see some design. Now, when I go out and squirt that all out, the light part is obviously going to get a little bit lighter, and you're going to see more of a pattern. But because this was so intense, the whole thing just got rusty, which I'm not complaining. The more rust, the better for me. I mean, that's the way I look at it. Oh, wow. These are really rusting. Look at that. I'll go out after I show them to you. I'll go out and squirt them and then come back and show you what it looks like. And then once I make sure that they're rinsed really well, because it's already looks like it might want to rain outside. So I'm not going to be able to hang them out. So I'll go throw them in the dryer, and once they're dry, then I'll show you what these ended up looking like. But look at all this rust. It's everywhere. Oh my goodness. Look at that. This is going to be crazy. This is going to be crazy. Now the more the whiter the weave, the less what's the word I'm trying to think of? The less I can't think of the right word. But the design won't be as vivid because of the weave. The tighter the weave, the better the print. It's like anything else you would print. If you had stamps that you printed with and you did it on a real loose weave, the stamp, I mean, you'd see the stamp, but it wouldn't be as sharp as if you were doing it, say, like on a paper, right? So your weave has a lot to do with it. And this is kind of a loose weave. So if you were to get like just a regular old piece of cotton, you know, an old bed sheet or something, the prints would be, you know, tighter. But these are going to be wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Oh my goodness. What yumminess. What yumminess. Wow. Now, if you were resting something that eventually you were going to wear, you'd want to neutralize this resting, and you would do that with, you'd put some, uh, 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 you know what I mean? Oh my gosh. You would put, ooh, look at that. some baking soda in some water. You know, just a nice little, like those little bucket I showed you. Probably put like, you know, tablespoon, couple of tablespoons, heaping. I do everything heaping. And then that will neutralize what's happening with the fabric. But because I'm not going to wear these and I don't mind them aging a little bit more, it's not going to do that much, you know, because you're going to wash them and dry them and all that. But just in case. But if you were going to be wearing them, I definitely would neutralize your fabric. So when you check on yours, you know, if you don't want a lot of rust, you know, check it in that 2-hour period. That's when I showed it to you the first time. And if you still want more, well, you just put that back in there and let it do its thing. I have those furnace grates that I print with. I think I'll do a batch with those in the next couple of days. I'm in the rusty mood. And see how wet all this is because we put it in plastic and it was in the heat. So I'll put these papers out also. And these will be really cool for collage. And then I just reuse the bags over and over until I get a hole in them. I guess that's it. All right. Excuse me. So I'm going to go out right now and hose these down, and I'll be right back. All right. So I took them outside. I hosed them all down several times, wrung them out, sprayed them down again, wrung them out, and then I have this this old pillowcase that when I put anything that I've rested and I'm going to put it into the dryer, what I do is I put it inside of this old pillowcase. That way, you know, you're never going to get 100%, and I just don't want that dye, you know, mixing up into the dryer. And so I put it in here, and that way anything gets collected inside of the pillowcase of any of the residual rust. So these came out pretty it's weird. Some of them are really dark, some of them are light, but I got a lot of color. I'm not sure why I'm looking up here on the monitor and it's looking green. It's not green at all. This is like rust. So I'm not sure let me put something else there. My phone. See if it'll change the color. Does it change the color? No. I thought maybe if it focused on something dark. I don't know. Very strange. Anyway, it's a beautiful rust color. And here, this was in the mix. Why, you know, there's not that much printing on it, but there's plenty of rust. And look, rust, and more rust. Very cool. And they do look different on each side because, you know, there was a different tin there. So, and I personally leave all of these until I'm literally using them, because sometimes you might want to incorporate, you know, all this into whatever design you're doing. And then if you decide against it, all I have to do is cut it off. But this looks really cool, even if you don't leave it attached, but you sew it, you know, on the page, or if it's a cover or whatever it is you're going to do with it. Um, it looks really cool. Just a real soft stitch holding it down. I know some people had, you know, questioned, you know, if there'd be an odor after you've rinsed it all out. While you're doing it, yes, it does have that real strong iron, you know, smell to it. I'm not gonna lie to you. But after you've, you know, rinsed it out and washed them out, and then when I throw it in the pillowcase, I throw in there, you know, one of those softeners. It has a nice little freshener in it, and it seems to do the trick. I really don't smell it right now at all. Because I know people that rest clothing, you know, and sell the clothing. And I'm sure they don't want to go running around smelling like iron. Okay, so on those other samples I showed you, I don't know where they are right now, but the ones I initially showed you that I put the indigo on it, um, on those particular ones when I printed those, I put the tin right in the center, so as it went out, it was lighter and lighter and left all these little gaps all over the place, and that's where I ended up, you know, adding the indigo. Now these, some of them, you know, you'd be able to add the indigo, you know, because the material was totally over all of the rust, so obviously everything's going to rust. But they've all got these gaps that would be really, still really pretty, um, to put the in, or any kind of color that you want to put in there. Or if you didn't want color, it's still a really pretty place to add your stitching if that's what you want to do with it. But I think these all came out really neat. Also, that piece of metal that was in the kit. Give me 1 second and I'll show you what I did with that. Okay, I have this Pyrex dish that has been appropriated for all of my resting activities, so that, you know, obviously it won't rust away. Now, remember those jars where I had all that liquid in there? Well, I poured the liquid. I have this large coffee filter, so I poured it in there, and there's still a little bit left in here. I'm leaving it outside so it can totally dry, but we're supposed to be having rain, so I brought it in. And then I'll scrape all that down into like a little powder, and it's pretty much almost dry on that one. This one I poured out as much as I could, but then there was a lot of that sediment on the bottom, and a lot of it has already dried out, but this is going to take a lot longer. This might take a week or so out in the sun for it to all dry out. And then what I do is I just run a little bit so it's not like real noticeable what we're going to get, but you know, because I do this so often, I have lots of this water to go through the filters, and you can see here how it collected, and then you can come back and get all this powder form And then you can do with it all kinds of different things. But one of the things that you can do is if you just mix it up with a little bit of, uh, like some kind of a matte medium or Mod Podge or something, and then you can like paint with it, and obviously you're going to get some nice pigment from this. And so I just do this, and then I dry it out, and I get it all scratched off once it's totally dry, and then I just keep saving it in a little jar, and then you have your little your rust powder to work with, and really, whatever you can think of that you do with other kinds of pigments, you can do it with your rust powder. So that's another little option. Keep in the back of your head if you are going to clean all of your fabric in a bucket of water. Save all that water. Wait till all of it falls down to the bottom, and then you can drain it, strain it, and dry it. So keep that in the back of your head. And then also these is that piece of, it's called plumber's strap is what it's called. And you can get those at the hardware store. To tell you the truth, it's getting harder to find it. I used to find it everywhere and anywhere, and like in a big roll, and now I only find it in small rolls. So I don't know why, but that's just what's happening. And so, obviously it was very, very shiny, and I got the 50-50, the hydrogen peroxide and the vinegar, and just created a solution, put about a tablespoon of salt, laid it in there, and this stuff within a couple hours looked like that. So what I did is after a couple hours, I took it out and kind of let the air start to do its thing and get a little bit more rust, and I left it out for maybe an hour or so, and then I put it back in and set it in there for maybe another hour, and then brought it out, and that was it. And you have this rust, and your piece is going to rust different, because see, I've got these 4 or 5 pieces, and each of them did something different. But either way, you're going to get a nice tone. Some will be a little rustier than others. Like this one end here, look how that got. I mean, it looks like it's ready to fall apart. And if you wanted to get rustier, then what I would do at this point, I would just leave it outside, just spray a little bit of water on it, and let it sit outside, and it'll just get more rusty and more rusty and more rusty. So no problema there. And there was this one little spot here. Look, I stuck it back in, and I even stuck it in upside down so I'd make sure it was in the solution, and these little spots here, for whatever reason, never rusted. I think it's a pretty cool effect. I couldn't do it if I tried, but it just happened naturally. So that may or may not happen on your piece. Okay, so let me think. I think as far as all the resting stuff, I think we've kind of got that all covered, I think. And if I think of something else, I will add it to the end of this video. But for now, I think you've got your, your resting 101. And then from there, it's really just you experimenting and seeing what you want to do with it. If there's something you want to rest and you're not sure, just stick it in that solution, 50-50, with a little bit of salt, and see what happens. That's how I learned, because I didn't really know what rested and what didn't rest. And so I just would throw it in the solution, leave it there for a couple hours. If nothing, absolutely nothing was happening, then I just took it out. But if you started seeing just a little bit of movement in that water and a little bit of tinge of orange stuff starting to ooze, I say woohoo, and I would leave it there, and rest is history. All right, so feel free to ask me any questions if I missed something or I didn't make it clear. And all I can say is happy rusting. I know you're going to have a lot of fun. You're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. There's nothing in between when it comes to this. Okay, happy rusting.